Who shall bear witness when the architect of silence turns his gaze upon the Imperium? When the Sigillite moves unseen, and yet all worlds tremble beneath the shadow of his unseen hand. The chronicle begins in whispers, in the void between stars where light dies and only memory persists. Long before the Emperor's throne commanded loyalty in gold and iron, there existed a scholar of secrets, a mind burdened with the weight of truths the galaxy was not yet ready to bear. MALCADOR the Sigillite was no soldier, yet armies followed the contours of his unseen will, shaping destinies without ever glimpsing his face. In the early years of the Great Crusade, the Emperor's vision of unity required more than steel and fire. It demanded foresight, manipulation, and an unwavering hand that could guide humanity without faltering. Thus, the Sigillite became both instrument and guardian, a man of shadow amidst the storm of gods and men. From Terra's highest spires to the remote hinterlands of conquered worlds, MALCADOR's influence stretched like a subtle web. The archives speak of his mind as a fortress, impervious to corruption, yet haunted by the specters of futures that might yet unfold. When the Primarchs awoke, the galaxy erupted in fire and wonder, and even the Emperor's sons, radiant and terrible, could not fathom the depths of his design. The Sigillite counseled, directed, and sometimes deceived, wielding knowledge as a blade sharper than any power sword. Civilizations rose and fell under his quiet machinations. Entire sectors reshaped according to the pattern he alone discerned. Chroniclers note that MALCADOR did not merely observe the unfolding Great Crusade. He orchestrated its tempo, nudging outcomes, removing obstacles, and planting seeds of loyalty and rebellion alike, all under the guise of providence. In the hidden chambers beneath the Imperial Palace, where light itself shivers before the weight of millennia, MALCADOR's hand etched sigils and wards that no common mind could read. These were not mere spells, nor even psychic glyphs, but instruments of fate, capable of bending perception, guiding decisions, and in some cases, snuffing out destinies before they took root. Whispers claim that he conversed with the Emperor not as a servant speaks to master, but as a partner glimpsing the architecture of eternity, pointing out fractures and sealing them before they spread. Yet even here, beneath golden vaults and stained glass windows depicting saints and conquerors, the air trembled with tension. MALCADOR carried the weight of impossible knowledge, the inevitability of the Horus heresy, and the fragile thread upon which humanity's survival would balance. Before the heresy, he moved like a shadow in the Emperor's court, his presence felt but rarely acknowledged. Advisors feared him, generals envied him, and psychers whispered of visions that seemed to originate not from the warp, but from the mind of one mortal man. He prepared contingencies, catalogued enemies, and foresaw the subtle betrayals that would come to tear the Imperium asunder. Some chronicles describe his actions as godlike, others as monstrous. He was both savior and arbiter, and even in his closest companionship with the Emperor, he remained unknowable. His loyalty was absolute, yet he carried doubts, questions of morality, necessity, and the cost of survival that even the Emperor could not answer. Every victory he guided, every strategy he shaped, came with a whisper of forewarning. The hour of betrayal was coming, and nothing would stop it. The Sigillite's counsel extended beyond strategy into the psychic and the metaphysical. He walked paths through the warp untraveled, communing with entities that mortals could neither name nor endure. His visions revealed the movements of chaos, the subtle tugs of fate, and the consequences of action that would ripple across thousands of worlds. Few could endure even fragments of his perception. The minds of those who glimpsed his truth often shattered. Yet MALCADOR bore it all with unwavering resolve, shaping the Imperium not as it was, but as it must become to survive. He became the Emperor's shadow, the silent arbiter of destiny, a figure whose absence would leave no void, yet whose presence was the hinge upon which the galaxy turned. As Horus grew in power, so too did MALCADOR's burdens. He counseled caution, orchestrated defensive measures, and subtly guided those still loyal to the Emperor. The Sigillite foresaw treachery not as an event, but as a pattern, a weaving of threads through time and space that led inexorably toward the betrayal of the War Master. He planted false leads, directed loyalists to act, and subtly manipulated rivalries to fracture the shadows before they consolidated. Every plan was a gamble with eternity, every choice a blade suspended above the neck of humanity. And yet, MALCADOR carried a silent fear, one unspoken even to the Emperor, that foresight itself could fail, that some truth remained hidden beyond even his comprehension. In the final days of the Great Crusade, MALCADOR assumed the mantle of responsibility for the Emperor's vision of the Imperium, guiding governance and strategy while the Primarchs waged war across the stars. He became the regent, the hand of the Emperor, the silent guardian of the throne. Yet the cost was immense. His health waned, his life force consumed in service to a destiny that would never pause. In whispered tales, chroniclers speak of his mind splitting across realms, touching the past, present, and future simultaneously. He existed everywhere and nowhere, a living nexus of strategy and foresight, with the weight of all humanity pressing upon his shoulders. And still, he moved with purpose, as if every heartbeat was a prayer to the gods of time itself. When the Horus heresy finally erupted, MALCADOR's preparation reached its zenith. He marshaled loyal forces, foresaw treacheries, and secured the Emperor's plans for the ultimate confrontation aboard the vengeful Spirit. His foresight was both weapon and shield, guiding the survival of those few who could resist Horus's sway. The Sigillite's efforts prevented total annihilation, ensuring that the Emperor's vision of humanity might persist even in a galaxy ravaged by betrayal. Yet, despite all his calculations, some outcomes defied prediction. The warp itself recoiled at his understanding, as if recognizing a mortal daring to perceive the shape of eternity. Even his greatest strategies left faint fractures, subtle deviations in reality that whispered of consequences yet unseen. Legends tell of MALCADOR's final acts before the Emperor's ascension to the Golden Throne. He sacrificed his own life force to stabilize the psychic nexus of Terra, binding the Emperor to his throne and ensuring the Imperium's survival. The palace trembled as warp storms raged across the surface, and yet the Sigillite endured, a silent figure weaving threads of destiny as his body faded into legend. To the citizens below, he became myth. To the Adeptus Custodes, an enigma. To the Emperor, an irreplaceable ally whose absence would echo across millennia. The galaxy remembers his name, yet none truly understand him, for his deeds transcended mortal comprehension. Even after death, MALCADOR's influence lingered. Wards he laid, strategies he encoded, and contingencies he designed continued to protect the Imperium. It is said that his spirit resides within the very fabric of the Golden Throne, whispering guidance, nudging events, and ensuring that the Emperor's will remains unbroken. Some claim to sense him in the silent halls of Terra, a shadow across the warp, observing, waiting, and perhaps judging. His presence is a comfort to some, a warning to others. No prayer reaches him, yet all destiny flows through his design. MALCADOR is the unseen hand in every act, the quiet architect of survival. Yet the chronicles leave a final unsettling note. In the deepest recesses of the Imperial archives, a fragment of his last vision survives, incomplete and fragmented. It hints at a betrayal beyond Horus, a darkness older and more insidious than the War Master himself. Some scholars claim the Sigillite glimpsed a force that could undo even the Emperor, a truth that he chose not to reveal or could not. The fragment ends mid-sentence, a rupture in fate, leaving the Imperium unaware of the shadow that waits. It is a question unanswered, a prophecy unfulfilled. And somewhere, beyond the veil of perception, MALCADOR's gaze lingers, watching, knowing, waiting. The galaxy marches on, unaware of the hand that guided its steps, the architect of survival whose wisdom shaped empires and silenced stars. MALCADOR the Sigillite is remembered in whispers, feared in legends, yet never fully known. In the quiet moments, when the warp stirs and the throne hums with psychic resonance, one may sense him still, a shadow stretching across eternity. And the question remains, chilling and inexorable. What did he see that even the Emperor could not bear? What force waits in silence, patient, while humanity dreams of triumph and permanence? And perhaps, somewhere in the void, the Sigillite himself waits for the hour when even his designs may falter. The silence of Terra's vaults is deceptive. Beyond the golden halls and psionic wards, whispers travel where even the Adeptus Custode dare not tread. In the quiet corridors of power, the seeds of doubt fester. Priests of the imperial cult murmur in hushed tones, questioning the Emperor's will, interpreting his decrees as riddles rather than mandates. In the shadows, scribes record histories that will never be approved, chronicling failures and sins, each word an act of forbidden rebellion. Warriors, draped in battle-worn armor, feel unease clutching at their hearts, sensing that the victories they celebrate are fleeting, bought with a currency they cannot comprehend. Faith, once as unyielding as ceramite, bends beneath the weight of uncertainty. And somewhere, unseen, the echoes of MALCADOR's counsel stir, reminding the vigilant that the line between loyalty and folly is as thin as a razor's edge. On the war-torn fringe worlds, conflict is both eternal and invisible. Entire populations serve as chess pieces, their devotion weaponized by commanders whose names are sung in glory while their true motives remain cloaked. Here, a planetary governor bends doctrine to personal ambition, twisting sacred text to justify conquest. There, a chaplain wrestles with visions that contradict canonical dogma, glimpses of the Emperor's mercy entangled with terrifying wrath. Soldiers fight with valor, yet their victories feel hollow. Every step forward uncovers a ruin, a monument to past folly, and a question about the righteousness of their cause. In the mess halls and bunkers, whispers of heresy crawl like vermin, gnawing at the edges of loyalty. Faith and fear are inseparable, two sides of a coin spun endlessly in the void between stars. Even the Emperor's light cannot pierce the cracks fully. Amid these fractures, the political machinery of the Imperium grinds with cruel precision. Administratum clerks and planetary governors trade secrets like currency, forging alliances born of necessity, not virtue. The Adeptus Ministorum enforces devotion while hiding sins behind ritual and incense, masking ambition with prayers. Senators murmur of inefficiency, corruption, and omens that foretell collapse, yet their words vanish beneath the roar of fanfares and battle drums. In this lattice of manipulation, loyalty is often performative, and righteousness a costume donned for appearances. Those who doubt are cast aside, and those who act with conviction risk becoming tools of powers they barely understand. Yet in hushed corners, amidst faded icons and scorched tomes, the whispers persist, a warning that some truth exists beyond the codices, a heresy older than even the Emperor's foresight. In the field, the warriors themselves are instruments of this quiet chaos. Space Marines, clad in ceramite and faith, march to war with unshakable devotion, yet even their minds are not untouched. Some dream of impossible futures where the Primarchs never fell, where the Emperor walks freely among mortals. Others awaken to the grim reality. Loyalty is tested not by the enemy, but by those closest whose counsel and command may conceal betrayal. Every battlefield becomes a theater of uncertainty. Every victory a hollow echo against the deafening truth that the Imperium's foundation trembles. The warp itself reflects these fractures, surging in psychic storms that twist minds and warp perception. Faith becomes both shield and prison, binding the brave and exposing the timid to terror beyond comprehension. In the cathedrals of the Imperium, where incense and prayer mingle with the whisper of power, the Ministorum faces a silent rebellion. Priestesses and chaplains begin to question the dogma they recite, sensing contradictions that gnaw at their souls. Icons bleed when faith falters. Relics hum with accusation when devotion is performative. Some cling desperately to ritual, while others secretly transcribe visions that contradict scripture, aware that discovery could lead to execution or exile. In this tension, the spiritual and political intertwine. The Imperium's piety is both armor and cage, protecting the faithful from the outer horrors while concealing corruption within. Here, even whispers carry weight, capable of toppling careers or inciting silent heresies that spread like rot among the devout. Even in the shadows of siege and bombardment, the trail finds fertile ground. Officers write reports that obscure losses, exaggerate victories, or conceal dissent. Commissars observe with cold calculation, enforcing obedience while suspecting those they command. Amidst this, a small cadre of loyalists uncovers evidence that a warlord, thought faithful, has diverted reinforcements for personal gain. Messages are intercepted, decisions questioned, and paranoia spreads. Warriors trained to act without hesitation find themselves hesitating, uncertain whom to trust. Loyalty becomes a currency as fragile as the ceramite plating on their armor. And beneath the veil of order, the first hints of a heresy more insidious than rebellion begin to surface, whispered among the few who dare to read between the lines. On worlds scorched by war, civilians bear witness to the cracks in devotion. Temples burn, relics vanish, and the faithful ask why the Emperor's protection seems so selective. Priests speak of divine testing, elders of divine neglect. Children grow among ruins, learning that obedience may not bring salvation. In secret, some clergy begin to interpret signs differently, suggesting that the Emperor's will is not absolute, that perhaps even gods can err. The seeds of doubt, long sown by war and despair, blossom in hidden corners. And in these quiet spaces, heretical ideas germinate, not with explosive violence, but as a slow infection, challenging the very notion of what is sacred, what is right, and what is survival. In the high halls of Terra, advisors and generals grow wary of each other, each plotting contingency against the other, even while paying homage to the Emperor. Strategy meetings mask distrust behind solemn nods, and counsel is double-edged. Advice that saves a planet might simultaneously jeopardize another. MALCADOR's shadow lingers as a memory, a standard of loyalty that none now truly grasp. Yet even his teachings could not prevent the subtle erosion of faith and unity. Across the galaxy, secret pacts form and dissolve, and whispers hint at an agenda beyond comprehension. The Emperor's throne hums, unaware, as the machinery of devotion fractures under the strain of political and spiritual rot. Unseen hands pull strings, and what was once certain now wavers like flame in the void. Aboard a fortress monastery orbiting a shattered world, a chapter of Space Marines uncovers a relic that should have remained buried. A codex containing forbidden knowledge of the warp, inscribed by hands now long decayed. Its pages reveal not only strategies but truths that undermine the Emperor's infallibility, suggesting that loyalty may be manipulated, righteousness exploited. The captain hesitates, aware that revealing the codex could ignite civil war within his chapter. He wonders if obedience to the Emperor truly requires belief or simply submission. Around him, his brothers exchange glances heavy with doubt. In these silent moments, the line between faith and heresy blurs, leaving warriors to wonder if their sacrifices serve a divine purpose or a lie orchestrated by unseen hands. Even as whispers of doubt permeate the Imperium, the Adeptus Mechanicus observes with dispassionate curiosity. Machines hum with forbidden data, and tech priests discover anomalies that suggest manipulation of history itself. Relics appear where none should exist. Battle records contain contradictions, erased and rewritten with precision. Some claim this is the work of a hidden cabal, others of the warp itself. Within the forged temples, debates rage over whether truth can ever align with devotion. Here, logic and faith clash, generating tension that cannot be resolved by decree or prayer. The universe itself seems to resist certainty, and those who seek absolutes find only questions, echoing across the halls of iron and cog. Amidst this growing uncertainty, a heretic's identity is revealed. A high-ranking ecclesiarch, long thought devoted, is caught communicating with entities in the warp, offering knowledge that undermines imperial dogma. His confession spreads like wildfire, igniting fear, outrage, and suspicion across multiple sectors. Loyalists scramble to secure control. Inquisitors debate whether to purge or conceal. Warriors are forced to choose between obedience and conscience. Faith fractures, alliances tremble, and the once stalwart foundation of devotion threatens to collapse. The revelation is simple, yet its consequences ripple endlessly. Even the sacred is not immune to treachery. And the Imperium, vast and unyielding, feels suddenly fragile, like a cathedral built atop a quake-scarred foundation. The final scene is silence and shadow. The heretic's words linger, barely spoken, hinting at forces older than humanity, older than the Emperor, manipulating events through layers of loyalty and betrayal. Soldiers, priests, and rulers alike pause, sensing that the galaxy itself conceals secrets beyond comprehension. Some pray, some weep, some steel themselves for the wars to come. Yet all feel the tremor in fate, a rupture in reality that was never meant to be revealed. The camera of consciousness drifts, as if through incense-choked halls and war-torn plains, to a single unanswered question. If the Emperors chosen are capable of treachery, what horrors wait where even faith cannot reach? Somewhere beyond perception, the galaxy's next betrayal begins to stir. Stars die quietly, and yet the universe trembles as though aware of its own mortality. On worlds scarred by centuries of war, the faithful kneel beneath the hollow gaze of shattered cathedrals, whispering confessions meant only for themselves. They speak of doubt as if it were a sin, of fear as if it were prayer, clinging to the faint light of purpose even as it flickers and dies. Warriors who have faced Xenos and demon alike find themselves paralyzed by the quiet decay of meaning, haunted by the memories of battles fought for causes now obscured. The galaxy widens, and the void presses in from all directions, cold and unyielding. Even the Emperor's distant light seems less a beacon than a reflection of lost hope, and the Sigillite's memory lingers like a ghostful question. What unseen hand will guide the last faithful when all certainty crumbles? In the void between warring stars, fleets drift like drifting corpses, engines muted by the weight of despair. Commanders issue orders that feel meaningless, and every victory is measured against the mounting cost in souls. Among these stars, psychers tremble as the warp stirs with new patterns of dread, visions that none should perceive. One interprets a fleeting shimmer as salvation, another as doom. Faith becomes a private torment, a dialogue with silence as each soldier confronts a galaxy indifferent to loyalty. Letters never sent, prayers never heard, memories of home and family decay alongside the stars themselves. The weight of obedience presses like ceramite, and the whispers of betrayal grow louder. Even those who once led with unwavering conviction begin to sense fractures in reality, hints that the war they fight is a shadow of something larger, incomprehensible, and far older. On decimated worlds, priests walk among ruins that reek of blood and ash, murmuring litanies that feel empty in the face of such annihilation. Their robes drag through the dust of civilizations that vanished without notice, and their chants echo off walls that remember more than they allow. Here, faith is a fragile construct, a thin line between sanity and despair. Some dream of the Emperor as savior, others as tyrant, and none are certain which vision holds truth. As they kneel in contemplation, distant psychic tremors prick at their minds, whispering of forces beyond even the warp. In these moments, memory and foreboding entwine, and they confess sins not to the Emperor, but to the void itself, aware that perhaps only the universe will remember what they dared to hope or fear. Conflict erupts with sudden, shattering violence. A fleet emerges from warp shadows to obliterate a world already bleeding, its defenders caught between obedience and horror. Bolter fire rips through ceramite, screams pierce psychic screams, and the warp swells in response, reflecting the terror of those who cling to loyalty while witnessing their purpose collapse. Commanders order maneuvers that risk annihilation. Chaplains pray for victory that will not come, and survivors catalog death as if it were scripture. The galaxy itself convulses with revelation, a sudden clarity in the midst of chaos. Obedience alone cannot save the faithful. Even in triumph, the cost is revelation itself, a whisper that the wars fought are only fragments of a design too vast for comprehension, and that the future has always been a shadow of forgotten truth. Amid the ashes, meditations turn inward. Survivors question not only their faith, but the foundations of that faith, realizing that loyalty has been demanded at the cost of understanding. Memories of victory feel hollow. Victories themselves are illusions, masks concealing deeper currents of manipulation. Warriors and priests alike feel their souls pressed against the cold architecture of destiny, wondering whether the Emperor's light was ever meant to illuminate or merely to blind. In these quiet hours, confessions are made, of doubt, of hidden envy, of acts done in secret that violate the principles they swore to uphold. And beneath it all, a subtle pattern emerges, unnoticed yet undeniable. A web of secrets that stretches across time, suggesting that what has been believed may be deliberate deception. In laboratories and warforges, the Adeptus Mechanicus uncovers relics that defy comprehension. Metals older than the stars, devices that hum with intelligence, and inscriptions in languages no human has the right to know. Here, logic and faith collide violently. Scholars whisper that the Emperor's victory may have been orchestrated atop hidden designs, built upon the bones of worlds long dead. Data archives pulse with anomalies, and some tech priests speak of an intelligence guiding the Imperium from beneath the machinery, unseen and unholy. The discovery does not bring understanding but dread. Faith begins to mutate into obsession, devotion into ritualized fear, and the line between belief and heresy dissolves in the minds of those who touch these forbidden truths. Among the soldiers, inner torment manifests as psychic echoes. Some dream of impossibilities, the Emperor not as God, but as pawn. The Sigillite's interventions not as protection, but as containment of knowledge too dangerous to release. Hallucinations bleed into reality. Visions of ancient betrayals converge with battles yet to come. Commanders find themselves hesitant, and the line between enemy and ally becomes fluid. A space marine confesses to his chaplain that his fervor feels manipulated, that every sacrifice, every prayer, may have been a preordained variable in a calculus beyond human reckoning. The chaplain, unable to answer, prays not for salvation but for comprehension, even as dread festers and spreads. In the deepest vaults of Terra, secret archives reveal fragments of truth suppressed across millennia, maps of psychic currents, genealogies of power that predate even the Emperor, and the skeletal remains of worlds that bear sigils of a design older than humanity. Scholars who gaze upon them are undone, their minds unraveling under the weight of revelation. Some speculate that the Imperium itself is a construct built upon lies, a containment of forces that could undo the cosmos. Here, memory, politics, and faith collide, each layer of secrecy adding weight to the air, until silence itself feels conspiratorial. Those who witness this truth are left to question whether obedience is virtue or a cage. A sudden psychic surge batters Terra. Flames of crimson and gold erupt across the sky, visible even from orbit. The Emperor's throne quivers under the strain of forces previously unnoticed, and psychers across the sector scream as their minds brush against a revelation too vast to name. Shadows move where none should exist. Some interpret the event as divine anger, others as the awakening of something imprisoned. Among the survivors, certainty shatters, loyalty becomes fragile as glass. Even the most faithful feel that destiny is not a path guided by righteousness, but a labyrinth constructed by unseen architects whose motives may be inimical to all life. In isolated monasteries, Space Marine chapters experience discord unprecedented in living memory. Brothers question oaths, conflict erupts over interpretation of orders, and whispered heresies ignite panic among the devout. Commanders fear mutiny as visions of the warp intertwine with political rivalries, and even venerated relics betray subtle corruption. The Sigillite's teachings, long thought infallible, are seen as guidelines, not law, and the weight of centuries of obedience is revealed as brittle. Faith becomes introspection, and introspection becomes terror. Warriors weep in silence, realizing that the battles fought may have always served hidden purposes, and that the clarity of righteousness was an illusion. Amid the devastation, one scholar unveils a final, unthinkable truth. The Emperor's design was not solely for humanity, but a mechanism to channel something older, something inhuman, hidden beneath the bones of creation. The revelation fractures all prior understanding, forcing warriors, priests, and rulers to confront the possibility that the Imperium is a cage, the Emperor a warden, and the galaxy itself a puzzle whose solution may be catastrophic. Some flee in horror. Others embrace the revelation as destiny. Across the void, stars seem to flicker in acknowledgement. The cosmos itself seems to pause, awaiting the consequences of a secret unveiled after 10,000 years. The final scene is quiet, cosmic, and absolute. In the shadow of a dying star, a lone chaplain kneels among the ruins of a temple, confessing not sins but the unbearable truth, that loyalty, faith, and righteousness may all have been instruments, and that the universe conceals a deeper architecture, patient and eternal. The sky shudders with the echo of revelation, and the flames of war reflect nothing but reflection of cosmic design. Somewhere beyond perception, the hidden architect stirs, aware that knowledge has been glimpsed, that the trajectory of fate has shifted, and that the galaxy will never again walk blindly. The last breath of certainty dies. The void trembles as if the galaxy itself remembers every oath broken, every devotion betrayed. Ships drift silently among dying stars, engines muted beneath the weight of centuries of conflict. Pilots stare into the black, listening to memories of battles that were never truly won, of sacrifices that yielded no victory. In this silence, guilt and purpose intertwine, a suffocating shroud over those who still march to impossible duty. Priests chant in hidden sanctuaries, their voices echoing against stone walls, carrying grief for lost worlds, unavenged dead, and prayers unanswered. Soldiers sharpen blades they may never raise, while commanders plan maneuvers that will fracture lives with precision. Even the warp quivers, sensing the collective anxiety, and whispers of predestination brush against mortal minds. Somewhere, unseen, the architects of fate observe, waiting for the hour when choices converge and the universe itself prepares to judge. On planets scorched by endless fire, the faithful press forward through ruins that smell of ash and despair. Each step is a confession, each breath a remembrance of promises made and broken. Children of war stare at icons cracked with flame, and even the most devout falter under the weight of seeing faith tested against the cruelty of reality. Generals make decisions that doom their allies even as they secure fleeting victories, each choice a shard of pain embedded in memory. Among the Adeptus Astartes, brothers question the righteousness of orders, seeing the consequences of obedience etched into the faces of the dead. Silence dominates the battlefields between engagements, a quiet before the inevitable fury, where grief is a weapon as sharp as a bolter's round and as unyielding as ceramite. The air above siege worlds hums with tension. Orbital bombardments wait in frozen calculus, suspended between command and execution, while gunners check targeting arrays for enemies that may no longer exist. The people below tremble, unaware of the machinery poised to obliterate their homes in the name of devotion. Chaplains move among the ranks, reciting prayers that feel more like pleas, their voices quivering under the psychic weight of dying stars. Every heartbeat feels magnified, as if the universe itself counts each life before casting it aside. Within the warship's bridges, officers share brief, haunted glances, aware that history will remember orders but forget faces. And above, in the silence of space, stars flicker like memory fragments, reminders that even the cosmos participates in this judgment, and that each action, each choice, is already shaping destinies yet to unfold. Amid these shadows, betrayal simmers in unseen corridors. Advisors and governors manipulate intelligence, twisting reports to secure personal survival or advantage. Plans are double-edged, alliances fragile, and the weight of conscience presses against loyalty like a vice. Even among those who have sworn absolute obedience, doubt festers, gnawing at the mind until clarity is replaced by instinctive fear. Soldiers act with precision, unaware of how their movements advance the designs of those who move silently behind the throne. The galaxy reshapes itself with every whispered command, every hidden decision, and every secret transgression. In the warp, these ripples echo as psychic tremors, touching minds who should not perceive them, spreading unease, and hinting at consequences far beyond the ken of the most faithful or cunning. On the battlefront, a lone space marine stands amid the bodies of his chapter, bloodied and scorched, his armor dented by the fury of war. He confesses silently to his dead brethren, questioning the purpose of loyalty when victory is a fleeting shadow and the cost immeasurable. Bolter fire erupts around him, echoing like judgment, yet he does not flinch. Every shot, every cry of agony, etches memory and guilt into his soul. He marches forward, knowing that survival is meaningless without the weight of conscience to temper it. Across the battlefield, similar stories unfold, soldiers wrestling with inner torment, while chaos swells around them, and the universe itself seems to inhale, anticipating the coming storm that will test every belief, every oath, and every heart. In hidden sanctuaries, the Ministorum records events with ritual precision, yet even their archivists falter. Manuscripts smolder with the scent of revelation, ink bleeding with forbidden knowledge of betrayals long concealed. Priests debate the meaning of signs, struggling to reconcile sacred text with mortal action. Devotion twists into despair, hope into fear. Even the high-ranking clergy recognize that the Emperor's light may not illuminate truth, but only cast shadows in which sins fester. Political and spiritual hierarchies tremble as each revelation challenges the foundations of authority, and whispers of heresy flow like slow poison through the hearts of the faithful. In orbit above shattered planets, fleet admirals convene intense councils. Reports conflict. No one truly controls the flow of information. Calculated maneuvers risk annihilation, yet inaction risks collapse. Psychers aboard the command vessels tremble as visions of ruin strike with psychic precision, revealing not only enemy plans, but the consequences of their own choices. The Admiral's hand shakes over the hololithic display, aware that each command may irrevocably shape history. Around him, officers murmur prayers, hoping for guidance, and the universe seems to respond, drawing in the breath before thunder, bracing for the eruption of fury that will determine the fate of countless worlds. Across the Imperium, rebellion and loyalty collide silently. Soldiers refuse orders with subtle defiance. Governors hide resources that were meant to be supplied. Chaplains confront their charges with words that challenge belief rather than strengthen it, revealing cracks in the veneer of obedience. Here, the cost of devotion is laid bare, not in the clash of armies, but in the trembling conscience of those who still cling to purpose. Silence is as deadly as bolter fire, and hesitation can destroy entire campaigns. Within this web, betrayal is not always a choice. It is the inevitable consequence of revealing too much truth, too late. Amid the psychic storms of the warp, visions collide. Glimpses of the past, threads of the future, and choices unmade converge upon those attuned to the currents. A solitary psyker sees the cost of every oath, the despair of every soldier, and the futility of each prayer unanswered. The knowledge weighs upon him like a mountain of shadows, yet he cannot turn away. Every heartbeat, every sigh, every moment of hesitation is magnified in the warp, creating ripples that cascade across sectors, altering the course of entire campaigns. The storm grows, gathering momentum as fate itself seems to breathe and wait. On Terra, hidden advisors manipulate events with deliberate precision, balancing chaos and loyalty as though the galaxy were a delicate machine. Even the Emperor's presence cannot prevent the fractures that spread like lightning across the Imperium. Those who were once faithful question the point of obedience. Those who were once sure of truth now tremble in fear. Each revelation, each hidden betrayal, reshapes the political and spiritual landscape, leaving the galaxy poised upon a knife's edge. The Sigillite's lessons linger, a memory of vigilance now complicated by forces that were never anticipated, forces that may eclipse the light of the Golden Throne itself. Finally, the first salvo falls. Orbital cannons ignite like firestorms above worlds whose populations can only watch. Soldiers brace, chaplains pray, psychers scream, and commanders clutch the last fragments of certainty. The universe holds its breath. In this pause before annihilation, every choice, every sin, every act of devotion is accounted for. The galaxy itself seems to tilt, teetering on the precipice between order and collapse, as if the cosmos waits for the next heartbeat to decide the fate of all. And in that silence, the truth waits unseen, unmeasured, and inevitable, ready to strike as history hangs suspended. The void ignites. Stars flare like bleeding eyes, and fleets collide in fire and thunder. Bolters scream, engines wail, and the psychic resonance of the warp tears at the minds of all who witness. Commanders shout in unison with a universe that does not listen. Space Marines charge across shattered decks, ceramite echoing like a heartbeat of doom. Every decision fractures reality. Betrayal flashes in the eyes of allies. Every scream is a prayer unanswered. Every explosion a requiem for loyalty betrayed. The galaxy itself shudders, as though aware of the weight pressing upon its bones, and yet it endures. Within the fury, one realizes that war is not merely destruction. It is a cathedral built of pain, faith, and memory, and the consecration of each fallen soul echoes across eternity. Amid the bombardment, a lone chaplain walks through fire and ash. Each step carries the weight of every oath he has sworn. He prays aloud, voice shaking, for the Emperor, for the Sigillite, for the soldiers who will never return. Around him, armor melts, walls crumble, and his brothers fall one by one. He feels their deaths as personal confessions, sins repaid in blood and smoke. Time fractures, and in each heartbeat he relives campaigns, victories, betrayals. He whispers the names of the fallen, a litany to hold reality together even as it frays. The universe presses in. Silence and fury exist simultaneously. The chaplain understands that devotion is not salvation. It is endurance. It is memory. It is standing when the universe demands you kneel, and remembering that kneeling does not absolve the soul. Above the battlefield, warp storms collide with artillery fire, twisting reality into grotesque visions. Psychers scream, torn between the echo of the Emperor and the allure of hidden truths older than humanity. Shadows move where no light reaches, and soldiers glimpse horrors they cannot name. Entire fleets vanish in flashes of psychic flame. Plans evaporate under the weight of prophecy and chance. A single command can save a planet or annihilate a system. Choices fracture into infinity. The sky itself seems to mock the devotion of mortals, reflecting the futility of faith, yet demanding action. And in that chaos, the Sigillite's shadow flickers in memory, a reminder that guidance exists even where certainty does not, and that some sacrifices, though unseen, shape the fate of worlds in ways even death cannot undo. A captain screams, bolter in hand, as a squad falls around him. His loyalty is absolute, but the weight of every decision threatens to crush his mind. The air is thick with ash, blood, and the acrid tang of ozone. Around him, war rages with the geometry of despair, each strike fracturing more than bone. He realizes that courage is measured not in victories, but in the endurance of the heart. Every act of defiance, every final charge, is recorded in the memory of the universe itself. Even as comrades die, even as faith falters, the captain marches. His actions are intimate, personal, yet woven into a narrative that spans galaxies. He is a single note in the symphony of devastation, yet that note sustains meaning where the cosmos itself threatens silence. On Terra, advisors scramble, issuing orders that no longer matter. The Golden Throne hums with a psychic resonance that no mortal can comprehend. Visionaries see fragments of truth too immense to name. Secrets long hidden are illuminated in flashes of insight that feel like lightning in the skull. Every bureaucrat, every general, every priest senses the tremor in the foundations of the Imperium. Information flows like fire, conflicting, impossible to reconcile. In these moments, even the most loyal ask themselves, what is devotion when the pillars of belief are not built on truth, but on controlled ignorance? Somewhere in the silent heart of the Emperor, there's awareness, yet it does not intervene. Perhaps it never does. Perhaps it never will. The galaxy reels, and the stage is set for an outcome that will echo for millennia. Across war-torn worlds, soldiers, priests, and civilians alike confront revelation and ruin. Survivors clutch each other, whispering confessions of sins not yet expiated. A mother kneels beside her child's body, offering prayers she does not believe will be heard. A veteran of countless campaigns watches a city fall, knowing that loyalty and sacrifice were never enough. Even victories taste like ash. Every act of devotion has a cost measured in lives, in memory, in the slow erosion of certainty. The weight of consequence is heavier than ceramite or adamantium. And yet, life persists. Even as empires fracture, even as the faithful falter, the faintest ember of purpose remains, fragile, flickering against the storm. The warp bursts violently above a besieged system. Psychic energy tears open reality, exposing glimpses of truths that no mortal mind can contain. Horrors of the pre-imperial age flicker in shadowed corners of perception, suggesting manipulation older than the Emperor, older than humanity itself. Psychers fall into convulsions. Visions of betrayal cascade through the minds of soldiers and commanders alike. Some weep, some scream. Some surrender to understanding too vast to endure. Even those who act with devotion feel the tremor of eternity. Choices made centuries ago resurface in impossible clarity. The weight of obedience, of faith, of every unspoken truth, converges. The universe itself waits for the next heartbeat. A Space Marine sergeant charges across broken ground, bolter raised, ceramite etched with the names of the dead. His squad falls around him like snow and fire, yet he continues, every step a litany of grief and devotion. Rage and despair are indistinguishable. Faith becomes instinct. Each fallen comrade burns in memory as he moves, a slow-motion litany in the theater of annihilation. He confronts foes not only of flesh but of destiny itself. Every shot fired is both rebellion and obedience, both confession and judgment. Around him, the world burns, the heavens fracture, and even the silence of space seems to hold its breath, listening to the echo of choices that cannot be undone. At the climax, a single figure emerges from the smoke, a psyker of immense power, eyes alight with visions of the past, present, and fractured futures. He reaches toward the skies, his hands trembling as the warp itself bends around him. Every act of devotion, every betrayal, every prayer unanswered, converges upon his consciousness. He glimpses the architecture of creation itself. The Imperium, the Emperor, the Sigillite, all instruments in a design older and vaster than understanding. For a single instant, the galaxy seems to pause, aware of its own fragility, and the psyker cries a wordless lament that echoes across the void, a sound that is both prayer and accusation. Silence follows fury. Fires burn themselves out. Smoke drifts over shattered cities, drifting fleets and dying worlds. Survivors stumble through the aftermath, some broken, some hardened, all changed. Faith is no longer simple. Loyalty is no longer unquestioned. The cost of endurance is etched into every eye, every scar, every prayer. History will remember bodies and battles, but not the weight of choice that led to them. Somewhere, the hidden architecture of fate shifts imperceptibly, a silent pivot that alters the course of the Imperium forever. In the final moments, the camera of perception lingers over the aftermath, a fallen fortress, a deserted battlefield, a city that will never rise again. Stars flicker weakly above. A lone survivor kneels, touching the scorched ground, whispering words that have no audience but the universe itself. The tremor of eternity pulses beneath his fingers. What has changed is not immediately visible. Perhaps it never will be, but the shift is permanent. Somewhere beyond perception, a truth has been unearthed, a cosmic mechanism engaged, a destiny rewritten. The galaxy exhales. Silence prevails, yet everything has changed, and the echoes of this storm will haunt existence for millennia. The smoke of countless worlds drifts into voids where no stars shine. Cathedrals lie in ruin, their spires broken, stained glass shattered, yet faint glimmers of light persist among the fragments. On scorched plains, banners flap silently in the wind, holding the memory of devotion that once guided armies and empires alike. The living move quietly, carrying the weight of the dead, recording the fallen in whispered names and private rites. Even the air seems thick with remembrance, heavy with echoes of battles that shaped worlds and the unseen decisions that tipped the scales of destiny. Somewhere, perhaps in the warp or perhaps in memory, MALCADOR's silent guidance lingers, a specter that watches over what remains. And yet, the universe itself feels diminished, aware of all that has been sacrificed and all that will never return. A lone remembrancer walks among the ruins, pen in hand, chronicling the silent aftermath. Each stroke records both fact and feeling, blending the history of deeds with the memory of souls. They do not seek to explain, only to preserve the echo, the resonance of a galaxy scarred beyond measure. Dust collects on pages, filling the margins with traces of sorrow. The stories of heroism and treachery intertwine, inseparable, leaving behind questions no scribe can answer. How much faith can one endure before it becomes its own burden? At what cost is survival meaningful when everything else lies in ruin? These questions linger like incense, filling empty halls and darkened stars with their weight. The remembrancer writes on, knowing the act itself is devotion, a last prayer to a universe that will not respond. Across shattered cities, statues of saints and heroes are toppled, their faces worn by fire and time. Streets are silent, except for the occasional creak of a weakened beam or the sigh of wind through hollowed ruins. Survivors wander, their shadows long and thin in dying sunlight. Children who remain ask questions that cannot be answered, questions about gods and duty, loyalty and loss. Soldiers stare into empty sky, feeling the hollowness left by comrades and victories alike. Every echo of bolter fire, every scream of psychic resonance is gone, leaving only memory to haunt the mind. Faith exists now as a fragile ember, flickering against the cold void, a reminder that the galaxy has endured. Though it bears scars, it will never fully heal. On the edges of the Imperium, warships drift silently in voids where no battle rages. Hulls scarred, engines limping, crews diminished, they carry the weight of worlds lost and victories hollow. Officers and soldiers alike record their journals in the quiet, noting names, locations, and choices that may never be repeated. The warp hums faintly around them, a lingering reminder of decisions made and horrors glimpsed. Even silence becomes heavy, almost sacred, as though the galaxy itself pauses to grieve. Each memory, each trace of devotion, is preserved in meticulous detail. Yet no ledger or account can reconcile the cost of survival with the weight of lives spent. The void stretches endlessly, and with it, the quiet sorrow of a universe that has wept but will not speak. In the cathedrals that remain, faint light filters through cracked windows, casting fractured patterns on shattered floors. Priests and pilgrims move softly among broken pews and scorched altars, lighting candles that will last only hours in dying air. Rituals are observed, not for divine presence, but as remembrance, small acts to keep memory alive. Incense drifts, curling around debris, carrying questions that no God will answer. Are prayers meant for salvation or for the soul that cast them? Is devotion meaningful if all else crumbles? These questions echo in empty halls, unanswered, lingering in the heart of the faithful as a quiet torment. Yet the act of asking, of remembering, becomes itself an offering, a testament to endurance in the face of absence. On battlefields now silent, weapons lie abandoned, scorched ceramite and shattered bolters mingling with the soil. Smoke drifts across cratered landscapes, moving slowly as though mourning its own presence. Remnants of banners, torn and blackened, wave in the wind, and the cries of the fallen are heard only in memory. Space Marines kneel quietly among corpses, fingers tracing names scratched into armor or etched into walls. Each act of devotion is private, intimate, a whispered acknowledgement of sacrifice and the impermanence of purpose. Here, the weight of duty is tangible, pressing on bones and spirit alike. Even the universe seems to breathe in tandem with this grief, the quiet rhythm of remembrance marking time in a galaxy scarred and exhausted. Across worlds, relics of battle glimmer faintly in the dim light. Ceremonial swords rest against crumbling walls, banners catch the sun at odd angles, and psychic residuals pulse weakly in the air. Survivors, few and silent, catalog what remains, fragments of honor, traces of heroism, and signs of betrayal now reconciled only with memory. The remembrancer writes still, aware that these records will survive only as testament, never as explanation. The weight of unanswered questions presses upon the page. Did the Emperor foresee this? Did devotion matter if empires burn? The galaxy is quieter than it has ever been, yet the air hums faintly with the echoes of all that is past, as if the universe itself remembers and mourns alongside the living. In the shadow of dying stars, fleets drift toward ports long abandoned. Pilots chart courses through debris and silence, aware that each trajectory carries both memory and loss. Even machinery hums with recollection. Engines bear the wear of centuries. Shields remember the fury of past battles, and navigation arrays are etched with the echoes of choices made. Crew members whisper the names of comrades lost, in voices that seem to mingle with the void itself. There is no victory in survival alone, only the testament of endurance. The galaxy is a silent cathedral, and all who traverse it are both its congregation and its chroniclers, witnesses to a story written in fire, blood, and the faint glow of stars. In hushed corridors of the Imperium, scribes catalog events, noting victories, losses, and the weight of acts unspoken. The Emperor's throne hums quietly, still, unyielding, a reminder of authority unbroken but distant. The Sigillite's shadow persists in memory, a faint whisper among the records, reminding all who remain that guidance once existed even where certainty did not. Questions linger unspoken. Can the faithful endure knowing the cost of devotion? Can loyalty survive the weight of revelation? Answers are unnecessary. Only the act of remembering remains, a fragile act of defiance against the silence that follows calamity. Across desolate plains and shattered cities, survivors light candles at the graves of unnamed dead. The wind carries the scent of ash, of smoke, of memory itself. Priests murmur quiet liturgies, warriors bow in private confession, and children stare at the ruins, asking questions that will never be answered. Each gesture is small, intimate, yet monumental, proof that life persists, that memory endures, that faith, however fragile, remains. Time itself seems to pause, listening, waiting for no answer, as if even the stars bow to honor those who have fallen and those who remember. Finally, the remembrancer lays down the pen. The last pages of the chronicle flutter in the dying light, capturing what cannot be explained. Silence settles, heavy and sacred, over the galaxy. Ruins, banners, broken weapons, and shattered cathedrals speak for themselves. The universe is quiet, yet resonant with the echoes of everything that has been sacrificed. The final lines of this record are not instructions, nor revelations, but images. A lone soldier kneeling, a candle flickering in wind, a banner half buried in dust, a planet spinning slowly among stars that no longer shine as they did. Faith persists, memory endures, and the weight of all choices rests lightly in the void, haunting and eternal. And as the camera of consciousness drifts among these remnants, one question lingers above all others. What is the cost of endurance when the gods do not answer? when devotion is measured only in the silence left behind. And still in that quiet, there is beauty, fragile as starlight, and meaning, however fleeting, in the act of witnessing. Stand with the survivors. Stand with the memory. Stand and bear witness. If you felt the weight of this story, please like, subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments below so that the Chronicle of the Fallen may endure.